161st Street, Yankee Stadium.
Swung on and hit in the air. The deep center. Gets back, away back. She is gone.
All right, welcome back to the Boys of 161st Street, episode 177. Today is February 3rd, Thursday, and the MLB is not looking too hot to have a on-time start. Nobody thought we would have an on-time start, but they're not very close in the negotiations, and spring training is supposed to be in 2 weeks-ish. That doesn't look like it's going to be happening on time. Spring training, I mean, it looks like there might be a shortened season. So it could be another 100, 120 game season, which would be not another, but I say that because during 2020 they were talking about doing that, and it obviously never happened that way. So yeah, not looking too hot for that. There obviously still will be a spring training. If the season does in fact happen, that's just what would cut into the regular season games. We've been through this whole rodeo before for 2020, so we know how this is going to go. Hopefully we can make it out to spring training during the abbreviated time, but yeah, not looking too good there. Other news before we get, this is going to be a Giancarlo Stanton roll call episode, so similar to the Garrett Cole back end of the episode last week, we're going to do like a quick, try to do 20, 25 minutes on Giancarlo Stanton, look back to what he did last year, project what he's going to do this year, storylines, etc., some fun stats for you, and yeah, so we're going to have some fun there. Before we get into that a little bit, the MLB The Show cover came out, and it was Shohei Ohtani, so that sparked a little bit of the question, because that's not only, he's on the cover of that, on two covers of MLB The Show, like a cartoon version and a regular version. He was on GQ, he was on all types of magazines, so that begs the question, is he the 2022 face of baseball? Is he heading into the 2022 season, is he the face of baseball? Or is it people like Trout or Tatis or all those
I think
names.
For people that don't watch baseball, he's the face of baseball, if that makes sense. Like, if you're a baseball fan, I think you look at guys like Acuna, Tatis. The guys are just super, I don't know, they're electric. They make you feel things.
Well, the immediate thing is that he's obviously international, which is big, but the big names that you would see competing with him in that were all pretty much hurt last year. Like Acuna got hurt at the back end of the year. He's having an electric year. Tatis was hurt for a good amount of time last year. Trout was hurt for the entire year, basically. Those names are all the ones you think of when you think of face of baseball, and they all were hurt, and he went out and dominated. So it's not unfair to say that he is the face of baseball heading into this year, but he could, in my mind, I'm going to say yes, but he could easily be dethroned by the other guys if they stay healthy.
No, I think he is, and I think for a few reasons. I think to Chandler's point, like, to the average person or to the average baseball fan who watches once in a while, he's extremely marketable, and he's so fucking fun to watch, and he's amazing, and he's doing something that's never been done before since Babe Ruth, and even that's a myth, so we don't even know that even happened. So, but he's incredible, and he deserves all of it. Look at a guy like Mike Trout. He's all talent in the world, and is probably going to be going down as one of the best baseball players of all time. But he's like such like an unmarketable baseball player because he's like not out in the media whatsoever, and he plays for a shitty team. He's on the same team as Ohtani, but Ohtani's more marketable.
I think you're right. And the biggest thing is that he does both, and he does something that nobody's ever seen before.
And like, that people love talking about it.
Been, really good hitter. Like to be the face of baseball and to like create, you have to like kind of create change in the game. Like Griffey, was that same way. He was the face of baseball during that period of time because he was different. It's something you hadn't really seen before. And I think the reason that Ohtani is the face of baseball is because he does both.
Yeah,
and
that's
Chandler, to your point.
Sorry, go ahead.
When you talk about like the Tatises and the Acunas of the world, like the people that watch baseball might think they're the face of baseball, but I think he's just as electric and exciting as those other guys.
I totally agree. I'm just saying if we're all sitting here, I mean, Ohtani's going to get the conversation from people like we're saying. If I'm talking to somebody that doesn't ever watch baseball, like, oh yeah, what's that one guy who plays on like some red team? He pitches and hits. He's pretty good, huh? Like, so he's the most recognizable just because of he dominates the headlines, everything like that. He is a face of baseball. But if the four of us are sitting on the couch and you can only pick one game and you're trying to decide between watching an Acuna at bat or an Ohtani at bat, what are you going to pick?
Ohtani.
I disagree.
No, I think it's Ohtani.
I think it would be Ohtani.
I'd rather watch Ohtani
too.
I know you guys aren't hockey guys, but I'm gonna make the.
Why do you bring up for a guy who has a Yankees
never.
podcast? You bring up hockey. So I mean, continue. You bring it up all the time.
So Connor McDavid is by far the best player in hockey, and people that don't watch hockey turn on Edmonton to watch Connor McDavid because he's a generational talent. Like nothing we've really seen since. He plays the game differently than Gretzky, but whatever. Ohtani, I think, has the same effect on baseball. I think that's why he's the face. Like people that don't watch baseball, they're like, "Oh, Ohtani's pitching and batting second tonight. I might actually watch the Angels game." And people that don't really like baseball aren't even doing that for Mike Trout, who's probably the best player that's active right now.
Yeah, I will say this too, and me and Damon made it a point this year to watch as much Angels baseball as we could early on, especially because Trout and Ohtani were on the same team. But I don't remember doing that, like making it a point to myself to say like, yeah, I'm going to stay up late tonight at 12 o'clock to watch Trout. But now that it was both of them and more so like what Ohtani was doing, that really made me want to watch more. And I think it was also a lot of the fact that since they do play late at night and we've missed a lot of Mike Trout live already. So I wanted to make a point to make sure I am still watching one of the potentially the best player to ever play baseball play live.
But even when Trout was hurt, you still watched him, didn't you?
What?
Trout was hurt a lot of last year, and you still probably watched the Angels.
I thought you meant when he was hurt, like I was watching highlights.
No.
Yeah.
Like I'm saying, like if they're playing at 10:30, even if Trout's not in the lineup, I think a lot of people are tuning in to watch Ohtani, especially if he's pitching.
No, you're right. And I think he made me want to watch late night baseball a lot more. So
yeah.
That's the same thing like with Juan Soto and Trey Turner when they were playing they bat back to back. So that was so fun to watch, and I was looking out for that. So I think he's the face of baseball, but he could definitely be dethroned. But there's so many names that are in this conversation, and a lot of them were hurt. I mean, you could even throw. I mean, if Judge has a great year, you could throw him in there. You could throw Mookie Betts at a down year, but if he gets back on track, I mean, there's a lot of names that can be thrown in here. But the fact that he's doing both makes him, in my mind, pretty easy to.
Yeah, I think to Murph's point, like he hit it on the head. Like making change and making noise throughout the league is huge, and like doing something different. And like Tatis was on the cover, and he was like the face for a brief period of time because he was like this electric young player who was just like showing off. He was doing the bat flips. He was yelling. He was like so hype on the field, and that drew attention to the general population. Ohtani out there. Pitching, hitting, doing amazing in both. People are watching the games, and that's why the general media is covering him because it's fucking unreal. Like, you need to have somebody go out there and do something that's never been done before, or like do something extraordinary to get the general population talking about it, and then you can have the face baseball conversation.
Well, let me ask you guys this: if the superstar guys that we're talking about return to form and they're healthy and whatever, and Ohtani comes out and just replicates the same season, is it still that exciting? I mean, don't get me wrong. It's incredible what he's doing.
Yes, it is.
But this is the first time, because he's been in the league for 3 or 4 years now. This is the first time he's done it successfully both ways and for an extended period of time. The rest of the times he got hurt. He had Tommy John. He was just a DH. He was shut down pitching, stuff like that. So he was kind of brushed. I wouldn't say brushed under the rug as far as his name, but he was like, what could happen? But this year he finally did it. Do you think if he does it again, it's just going to kind of die off, or there's still going to be, oh my God, it's Ohtani?
No, I think as long as he keeps doing both, it's going to be like,
yeah, I agree.
Incredible. Like maybe people will do it in the future, but nobody's done it in the past for the last, almost 100 years.
And I think if he doesn't do it, it's almost like tip the cap to him. You've done it to this point already. You've done it for longer than anybody has ever even come close to doing. So, like, if he does it for half the year and gets hurt, I'd still tip my cap and be like, wow, this is what you put together a year and a half of fantastic baseball both ways is insane. So I think it's just as impressive to me if he continues to do it because it's nuts. And I think you look at it from the big sample size. Like instead of looking at it as a 1 year.
It's not a big sample size though. He's got 1 year.
No. I meant like you look at it across both seasons, even if he makes it to a quarter or 3/4, it's just like you've done this for that long. I don't know. That's kind of how I look at it.
I mean, just to be clear, I also think he's absolutely incredible. I'm just playing devil's advocate, but
yeah. All right, I think that's enough talk there. Moving on, that card, by the way, in the show is going to be unbelievable. So
the cover I hate.
The cover's horrible.
Not a fan of the cover. I think they tried to do like an anime type thing.
They did.
Did you see how they teased Jeter? It was like 2/2/22. There was like some leaked like mock up of like a Jeter cover.
Yeah, is he in it? Was that?
No, so I don't know if he's gonna be. He'll be in the game, but a lot of people thought he was gonna be like the legend cover. Like instead of the anime cover, they were gonna do. Like,
was he not?
He was not. No.
So
Instead of
fake?
the legend cover, they did the Ohtani anime cover for like the deluxe version or whatever.
I wonder if they do get the rights to him in the next game, because they got Ortiz, so I figured they were going to be together, but we'll see. All right, moving on to Giancarlo Stanton. Giancarlo Stanton roll call. Last season, he had a great year. I think we've said it before, and we'll say it again. Like, there's no reason to be booing this guy. We'll talk about. I mean, there's absolutely no reason to be booing him. But he's going into his age 32 season. Last year is obviously 31. His stats on the season in 2021: 3.1 WAR, 139 games played, 273 batting average, 97 RBIs, 136 OPS plus. I mean, he had a great year. He had a fantastic year. And not only was he good in the regular season, but he is proven to everybody that the postseason numbers aren't a fluke. He did it again. He hates the Red Sox, absolutely mashes against them. There was one game against the Red Sox where the playoffs against the Red Sox where he was Fenway'd, he was green monstered into keeping 2 balls in the ballpark. He would have had 3 home runs in a playoff game, which is absolutely outrageous. So I think one of them, or both of them, he was probably held to a single on, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
but
he never had an extra base hit other than the home run.
Yeah, the dude's a fucking monster.
That first one he hit in that damn wild card game, I didn't even know it hit the wall because I was busy sprinting down the hall. Like, I thought it was gone. I was like,
yeah, I thought it was too.
I was about to like burst into tears. I got back. I was so fucking confused when he was on first. But I don't know. I love the guy. I think his May that he had, where he just kind of, you remember that? It was like he's hitting a home run every single game for an entire month. And then everybody kind of got off him. Then he had like a 2-week slump. And then the rest of the year, he was just incredible. And that last series against the Red Sox, I think we swept them or went 2 or 3, 3 or 4, something like that, where he was where he hit the grand slam and he hit the first inning home run and he hit the home run, the Santa Maria in the final game, like all that. I don't know. I think after this last season, I just don't think you can boo him anymore. Also, he played the field. He's proven that he can play the field, and that's a big thing going forward, especially if we don't make any moves. Man. And
not only did he play the field, but I have some numbers on pre-fielding and post-fielding. So he took the field. They were teasing it, like you were saying before we got on the air, the Marlins series, that he was potentially going to play the field. And everyone was like, oh, wow, he's going to play the field against his former team first game. How great is that? He did it probably, I think, the series after that. I forget what series that was, but it was around like the first couple days into August that he started taking the field. So before August, from the beginning of the season to then, he played 83 games and hit 254, and after that, he played 56 games and hit 300. So his numbers went up offensively, and he also played the field well. So like the fielding made his offense better, and I think that's not just a coincidence. I think it's keeping him more loose. He's not just stiff sitting on the bench, and just like things that you would assume are actually like a cause and effect relationship. It's actually, we would assume this would happen, and the entire Yankees organization didn't quite get it and didn't want to do anything about that and didn't want to put him in the field, but because they were assuming he would get hurt, but it actually ended up being kind of the opposite.
I want to know what made him decide to switch him to a DH in the first place. He's a good fielder.
He's always been a good fielder.
He was get him get hurt.
He's just such.
That's the reason.
I know it just doesn't. It's just fucking stupid.
I know it's stupid. That's literally the reason.
God, we're so much smarter than the Yankees front office. I don't know why they don't hire us.
I think at that point, though, like he looks kind of like he would be a DH, and I think that they wanted to keep his hitting production up, and the idea was that if he DHs and focuses on hitting, then he'll keep his numbers up.
Yeah,
Obviously,
they're
that
fucking
didn't work.
wrong.
But
well, I mean,
like
that's he was a DH, and then they were like having talks about bring him into the outfield because we needed it. But then he went on that hot streak while in the DH spot, and then boom, came out on the press conference and he said, I can't take him out right now because I don't want to mess with his rhythm of being a DH.
He does that all the time though. Like he like, everybody gets too hot and everybody gets taken out.
I know. It's like you wait for the perfect time. Perfect times are going to happen, and that's what he was doing all season. And I think that kind of, I mean, obviously it fucked with him, but like, I don't know. I'm so tired of that stuff. But I think he has to play the field majority of the season this year.
Can I say one thing real quick?
Or at least be flexible. Sorry.
Can everybody shut the fuck up about him having an awful contract? The Marlins are paying. You're paying what? I think it's either $16 or $22 million for that level of production. Fuck you. And
is
fuck
that
yourself.
confirmed? Are they paying like half the contract every year?
That was part of the big. That was a huge part of the deal and why the Yankees took
people
him on.
see the $29 million a year and they're like, holy shit! And like,
well,
it's
to be
funny
fair,
because you look at all of these.
They see the $325.
Okay,
what
and
they see.
and I actually just read an article about his contract. I was going to pull up some fun stats. Obviously now, like, we know that the Marlins are eating some of it, so it's not as egregious, but like, it's just funny. This is probably why people are saying this, because they hear things like this. They hear that he could, Stan will earn $2,853 an hour during the span of his 13-year contract. His average salary is more than at the time when he got traded over to us. Andrew Luck, Colin Kaepernick, Russell Wilson, Cam Newton, Robert Griffin, all combined earned that season. He could buy 650,000 Apple iPhone 6s with 128 gigabytes of memory. iPhone 6. That shows you how old that is. But
no, but that's
his,
good. No,
his
wait,
$325 million contract is higher than the GDP of the following countries: Tuvalu, Marshall Islands, Palau. I don't even know these countries, but he's got more GDP than they do. His reported $325 million contract could feed about 30,000 children for an entire year at a daily budget of $30 a day. And I think he could buy his own island. I forget the island, but. And if you look at the average at-bats before he came to the Yankees, he was seeing around 7,600. He would see projected 7,600 at-bats during his 13-year career. That would be $42,673 per at-bat. Based on last year's numbers, he had 510 at-bats, $29 million salary. That's $56,862 per at-bat. So, like, my reason for reading all that out is because that's the reason why people freak out about the contract stuff, because these are funny. Like, he makes ridiculous money. I mean, Damon had the numbers that he crunched about Garrett Cole's contract. He had to strike out like 12 people to pay for his house. Like, this is why people freak the fuck out.
But
they don't realize
the rest of the league.
Yeah, but they also don't realize those same people only see these headlines and they're like, they don't realize the Marlins are eating some of it. But I mean, regardless, he's a damn good player and he's earning this money. So I don't see the other side.
Even if he wasn't, or I don't know, even if the Marlins weren't eating part of his contract, would you not pay? We will say the Marlins are because they fucking are. Would you not pay $22 million a year for that production? An upper 200s who can hit you 30 to 40 home runs, possibly more. And I don't know. He's a middle of the order true power bat. He's a damn good player, and he could play the field.
I would, but we weren't getting that value out of him because we weren't playing the field. Now that we are, like, the Yankees weren't getting the value. He was providing the value, but we needed more out of him because of the fielding. So now that he will potentially, hopefully play in the field, absolutely worth the money.
I think he was worth the money before that.
Just as a DH?
A $22 million DH, which there's a lot. I mean, Nelson Cruz makes around that. Or he did. A couple of years ago, he at least got the qualifying offer,
over
which is
under
$18 million a year.
Over under 59 games in the field next season.
Under, they're not going to let him do it.
I think that's a pretty good line.
I hope over. I hope so.
I hope so, but they're not going to.
162 game season, I think it's going to be under.
Really?
They won't do it.
I feel like they're going to find somebody who's better in the field and plug him in. I hope it's over, because that means that we don't have to see Gary Sanchez behind the plate in theory.
Well, Tyler Wade's gone, so.
Well, actually, hold up, because
we
might see. There's a good chance we'd see the universal DH this year. I know that National League games aren't going to account for a lot, but something to consider in terms of how much he's going to get playing time in the field. And I think that's going to be the true test of, like, when we play him and if we're comfortable playing him in the field is when those National League games come.
That is a good point. I think the universal DH, and that's. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for his sake, I hope the DH isn't universal, because then you can kind of throw him in for those away NL games and see if he does better for some reason in the field, and then plug him in. Like they
Yeah,
did last
two
year.
sides to this. I think if you don't have the universal DH, I hope that he plays over the 59 game line that I mentioned. And this is obviously assuming 162 game season, which isn't ruled out yet, but it's not looking good. If there is a universal DH, I really see them just leaning into just like leave him DH, even though like it just seems like if the universal DH, if it happens, which I'm all for, by the way, but for the sake of Stanton, I feel a little bad because any progress he just made towards the back end of the season is now just going to be completely eliminated because of this universal DH, because there's no reason not to really put him there.
We don't have the depth. We don't have the depth to put somebody else at D. Like,
Well,
I mean, we don't even have a full outfield right now. Our
Yeah.
starting center fielder is Aaron fucking Hicks. Like, we don't have the depth to run him out there and rotate the DH around and stuff. He's gonna DH, and then they're gonna put like Ender Inciarte or Brett Gardner, and they're gonna start them in the outfield because they can play defense.
Well, I think the real kicker to this, to see how much he actually plays at DH, is the first base situation. Like if we bring him back Rizzo and have Voit, then he's gonna probably have to play the field a little more. If we don't, and we have one first baseman, he's probably gonna end up DHing a ton because we can.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that's
Well, they're not gonna trade for
TBD
Olsen.
there. I know. Is that new news? Because I saw that in an
Yeah, it came
article
out
recently.
like less than a week ago.
Yeah, so the talks for Olsen, just quick news there, apparently fell through because the Yankees didn't want to get rid of Volpe and Oswald Peraza, which I'm very happy about. There's been a lot of
How can you be
talk
happy about
about
that? What are you gonna have?
I'm not. I
15
know.
shortstops?
I'm not necessarily unhappy about it, but I'm glad we didn't get rid of Volpe because they are. I mean, they do this with a lot of prospects. Greg Bird was supposed to be the fucking next best thing. He's supposed to be the next Matt Olson. So they're hyping up Volpe a lot. He just climbed to what, Murph? 10. I know Murph's our in-house prospect guy. So he's 10 now in the entire minor league system. He could. I feel like he could come up this year, depending on what our shortstop situation
He's not
looks
great
like.
this year.
Cannot come up.
I
Confirmed.
doubt it.
Cannot come up. Murph.
I heard through my sources. No, I'm just kidding. Apparently
You
they're
look like
gonna try
Peter
to.
Pan right now.
I know. They're gonna try to go through. I think have him do the same thing he did in Double A and Triple A.
What?
What?
What does that mean?
Or
They're gonna
They
try and
want-
have
they
him
want
play
him-
good, like play well.
No.
Yeah. Hey, go out
No,
there
they're-
and
they're-
don't suck. Like,
they said they're gonna start him off, and he was Double A, right?
I think
no,
he
he
was
was-
single A.
yeah,
Yeah.
Maybe
I don't
was he
care.
so maybe
if
he's
he can't
maybe
play
they're
next
starting
year.
him
I
off
don't
in
give a
Double A
shit.
then? I don't know.
If he's not going to play in the team next year, I don't care.
I mean, I care a little. This
No,
is
I
different.
don't
I,
want
know what you're saying.
10 prospect for Matt Olson. I don't think that's worth it.
No, but
I don't-
I know
but
you're
Peraza?
you're saying this because of like the Dominguez stuff. This is a little different than Dominguez stuff.
No, I'm not even saying about that. I'm just saying like,
Because this is
I don't
totally
know.
this is totally a discretion thing. Like they could play him this year, and it wouldn't be rushing
I'll
him.
say
but
this.
they
It
really
would
want to
so be rushing him. He's
for-
like 21.
I'm saying this versus Dominguez is so different. Like
Right, but let me-
this is it should be still on your mind versus Dominguez. Like don't even talk to me about Dominguez until like
for Matt
4
Olson,
years.
for Matt Olson, no, I'm not going to train for Matt Olson. But like, if it was someone else who would like really change this team around, I don't care. Like,
Verlander when
I
he
think-
was
I think
available.
give-
to the Astros.
give me Verlander. I'll send
Cole.
away Volpe.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes, I'll s-
I
Not
disagree.
right
No
now.
fucking shot.
Not
Oh,
right
not
now.
right now.
I'm saying Verlander type.
Okay.
When the
yeah. I
Astros
know-
went and
now
got
I'm with you.
Verlander and went to
Yes,
a
yes.
fucking
Yeah,
World
yeah.
Series with
I'm
them.
not. I'm not
like
saying
prime Verlander.
I'm not saying
Yes.
currently right now is the exact
Yeah, I was
second. I'm
gonna
just
say,
saying
no.
a deal
Well,
like that.
That was a little bit
No, I
misleading
don't- I
because he
don't-
was a
I
free
think
agent
he's-
this
No,
year.
you just reacted
No,
immediately
he's-
to me saying anything.
You mean
I'm
the most-
trying.
I don't
You
think
completely
he's- I don't
blocked
think
out
they're
the whole
acting-
first half of that talk. You like me and Damon
Thank
were
you,
on the
Chandler.
same page, and you just blocked that out and heard Volpe for Verlander. Like, well, that's fucking.
Well, I
sick.
just heard Verlander, and I was like, Verlander. The most recent news on Verlander was when he was a free agent this year. That's
Well, maybe
why I
you
was a
should
little
listen
misleading. I wasn't okay. What were we saying, Murph?
Either well, I was just saying I don't think they're like completely prospect hugging him. Like if there's an offer that he's involved in that they think is reasonable, they're gonna do it. But they're
They
not
said
gonna
he's
give
untouchable.
him. They said word for word he's untouchable.
Yeah, him and Peraza are untouchables.
I personally don't want to give up Volpe for.
I don't want to give up
Olsen.
Volpe either. I'm pissed off about Peraza. That like
Okay.
you can't start 15 shortstops. I'm sorry.
Agreed. Apparently,
If you're gonna- if
Peraza
you're
is
gonna
really
move
fucking
from-
good, but
You can move from shortstop to other positions.
I actually think Peraza
so many
might
people
start
come up
this
as
year.
shortstops.
That would not surprise me at all if Peraza was the opening day shortstop.
Is Peraza one of those ones, like one of those prospects that he's slightly lower on like the Yankees list, so they don't mind rushing him type thing? Like that.
I mean, he's
that
like
happens
number
with.
two.
Like,
I don't think so.
Like who came up this year? Luis Heel came up, but they were less high on him than some of the other prospects. I don't know.
Medina.
Yeah, like Medina was a higher prospect. They're both about around the same age, but they were like, fuck it. Heel is more like pro ready right now. It's just
No, I think the readiness matters. Like I feel like it probably for pitchers has a lot to do with what their command is. Like Heel was probably way more comfortable than Medina.
I mean,
Medina's
Peraza's been all the way up to AAA. It would not surprise me if he started as shortstop.
I'd be pretty surprised.
I wouldn't. They don't want to spend any money.
Starting
over
opening
under.
day?
It wouldn't. I mean, it wouldn't. It would surprise me, but it wouldn't blow my mind. I wouldn't be like, "Whoa, holy shit, this is totally out of left field."
I feel like that'd be a mistake. I feel like he's gonna be down there until he's ready.
I mean, he's
You can't
pretty
rush a
fucking
guy like
ready.
that. I don't know.
I mean, he's hitting like
How old is he?
300.
Do we know?
21.
this is the Giancarlo Stanton roll call.
Yeah, I know.
Just
But
wanna-
well, this all ties
just
back
wanna
to
reel
him.
it back.
This ties
No, you're
back to
right.
because of the
It does.
first base thing and Matt Olson. But then we got off on a tangent. But
It's good content.
it is great content.
And those two aren't going to get a roll call, so
Which ones?
claps to them. Volpe
Can we do
and
a Brandon
Peraza.
Lockridge roll call?
We can absolutely do a Brandon Lockridge roll call.
Only if he's on the podcast.
Done.
Yeah, Brandon, if you're listening, you have to come on the podcast. We'll give you a roll call. So Giancarlo Stanton is in
See
year
how he does on the Tigers.
year 5. Stop saying that. It's gonna be a D-back. Year 5 of the contract upcoming. He'll be 32, making $29 million. Obviously, a little bit is gonna be paid by the Marlins. There is 7 years left on his contract. That's insane.
I'm cool. With it.
7.
He's 5 years in. He's got 7 years left. It's a little crazy.
You want to know what's funny?
Crazy.
It's a long contract.
You want to know what's kind of funny, but also really sad and depressing? That he, before Cole was the move, he was the move. We got one game away from the World Series right after 2017. We're like, oh shit, we got Stanton. No way anybody's taking us down now. And then we got cucked by the Red Sox. And then
I remember how I felt when that move was.
Oh.
We were still in college, and that I felt like
I stopped my car. I was
walked
driving.
up to Matt's room. Our friend Matt is a Red Sox fan. I walked up to his room. I was like, "Holy shit, you guys are fucked!" Like that was the feeling. It didn't necessarily work out like that because we were getting him off the MVP. He hit 59 home runs. Was it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Well,
Like
it was 59. We talked about that.
unbelievable. So I don't know. I mean, 5 years into the contract, I mean, it's definitely still worth it. But we thought we were getting full blown MVP, and he kind of became that at points
not
during
the
this year.
problem.
No one's saying he's the problem, but I'm just saying.
Okay. I was gonna say.
Everybody keeps saying like, oh, and I've said this before too. Like I kind of just said it. It's like he wasn't the MVP. He's not the MVP, and we said on the podcast a couple months back during the season, it was like, I think people have to just tender their expectations for him. He's not going to be the MVP guy. I think that you said exactly that. He's just going to be a damn good hitter. He's not going to be the MVP. I think immediately following those comments, he kind of fucking went on that tear and showed that he can still be that guy who can. He's truly one guy who is a one-man wrecking crew, and he can take over a game. And there's not many people in the league that can do that. He
He's a
can.
guy
He can
that-
straight up win a game. If that game against the Red Sox in the playoffs was played at any 29 other ballparks, he wins that game for us because that's 3 home runs.
He's a guy that he could be 0 for 20 with 19 strikeouts, and if he comes up, like, there's still a bit of hope where I'm like, well, you leave one, this game could be tied.
The
If
leave
Gary-
one's the real thing. Like,
Well-
yeah, put the wrong plays, that shit's going.
But if Gary Sanchez is 0 for 20 with 19
it's
strikeouts,
just
I'm like, fucking Christ, he's gonna ground into a double play with nobody on and 2 outs.
I mean, you can't
Like,
just compare the worst
Trying
player
to
in
do a double
baseball
play
to.
with nobody on.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a night and day.
No, I'm just saying because people think that Gary Sanchez is this crazy power threat, which fuck that guy. But I'm just saying, I was just
Basically
using
fucking-
it to compare.
It's just interesting to see. Like now, this is a 13-year contract. You look at who's the other 13-year contract? Machado has a 13-year contract. Who has
Trout
10?
has 14.
Trout has 14.
God damn.
You look at the other contracts, and I mean, we're nearly halfway through this. Obviously, like next year we'll be exactly halfway through it. I mean, halfway through this deal, you look at the big deals, and you look at if we gave LeMahieu a few extra years too, or like Cole, and you just say, oh, we're going to get the great years in the first half or the first 3 quarters, and then you just worry about the backside. This is looking strong right now. Obviously, I know it's due to taper off like towards the back. There's still 7 years remaining, but like I think
He's not going to be worth $22 million when he's 36.
no,
but that's
obviously not. But obviously, it's subsidized by the Marlins a little bit. But I'm just saying, this contract isn't looking like a garbage dump right now. Like it's still looking okay. It's
Well, yeah, I'm saying like when you're first reading off all those like compare it to whatever like the iPods or whatever like that was
Kids and their
how
goddamn
long ago
iPods.
was that? That was a long time ago, and like that big of a contract was like the
5 years
biggest.
ago.
That was the biggest we've seen. But now like people are throwing around $400-500 million contracts around like it's nothing. Like the Stanton deal, like looking back on that and looking at like what's being thrown around nowadays, and then the production value of what Stan's had, it's
Shit, Marcus
been
Semien
pretty
got
fucking
like
good.
30-something
Yeah.
million
yeah,
a
it's
year.
fucking nuts, dude.
You didn't tell me you'd take Marcus Semien over Giancarlo Stanton? Fuck no.
Like these contracts nowadays are
Inflation,
ridiculous.
True.
true.
Yep.
It's a finance pod. But then you look at other contracts. I'm mainly talking about all the bad contracts you think of, and it's obviously nowhere in the ballpark of like a Chris Davis type contract where he was making
The worst ever.
But he was during when he got the contract, he was that dude. And then all of a sudden, he's the literal worst historic player in baseball. Like how many at bats did he have where he didn't get a hit?
You talk about Chris
it
Davis.
was
I
like
think he was
Davis.
57.
Like 50,
He
yeah,
broke
like
the fucking
50-something.
record, right? I felt fucking bad for him when he was doing that. But you
I
look,
don't. He literally was such an asshole about it too.
was he?
Yeah, I don't feel bad for him at all.
I don't know.
Also, he definitely like killed the Yankees a few times, so fuck him.
Just
That's
saying.
very funny.
You look at those contracts, and this is every time you look at a big contract, it's always like, wow.
Everybody
They're gonna
bitches
regret
about
that.
every big contract ever. Tatis got a contract at 22, and they're like, well, I don't know, man. 13 years is a lot. Like, no, it's no. Every big contract is not bad. Just because he makes more money than all of us combined forever doesn't mean it's a bad contract.
Yeah, agreed.
What do you think he's doing right now, Giancarlo?
I don't know. He's probably in
Counting his
South
money.
Probably
Beach.
benching on like
Adriana Lima.
What the fuck her name is.
Yeah, just leave it at that's what he's doing right now.
Just
That's
benching
exactly
her
what
all
he's
day
doing right
long.
now.
Whatever.
Who do you think his best friend on the team is?
That's a good Gio.
You think? Is
I
Gio
can
going to
see
be
it.
like our third baseman next year? I know this isn't the Gio podcast. We'll probably talk about him at some
Yeah, but
point.
we're talking about Giancarlo's best friend, so it plays.
Yeah. Do you think he's going to be a third baseman?
Who else?
I don't know. Chris Bryant.
So, yeah.
Matt Chapman.
Oh, well, yeah. If you're talking about bringing in other people, then I don't know.
Yeah, if the season starts and we're able to make a
I
trade,
feel like there are positions to address. before
Brandon
third
Lockridge.
base,
Brandon
i.e.
Lockridge, third
every other
baseman, whoever it
position in the
takes.
Hey, he played second in college. That's like only 2 numbers away from third.
Damon just took his headphones off, so I'm assuming this podcast is over.
Well, I need to leave, so
All right. That's all I wanted to chat about with Giancarlo. All right, so that'll do it for this episode because Damon just put his foot down on us. He has to go. But these roll call episodes, honestly, like we usually do a real schedule with these, and we may still have to chat about our schedule. But with we usually line it up so that it's like 2 a week for the majority of the off season. Then you get into closer to the off season, spring training. It's like almost 1 every day and that type of thing. But we don't know when the season's gonna fucking start, so. As of right now, I think up to you guys. It's fair to do these like once a week, and then once we get some better news about the lockout situation, maybe we amp it up to 2 times a week and that sort of thing. But TBD, we'll let you guys know. If you guys enjoyed this, if you could give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, we'd really appreciate that. Subscribe to the Bronx Pinstripes YouTube. That's where you'll catch these live, and you can replay them and watch us in the video form over there. So that would be fantastic. Love you guys. We'll catch